Hello and welcome everyone to the next Foreman Deep Dive. Freshly back off vacation. I've been in my chair for about 4 hours, so I'm a little bit rusty. Forgive any mistakes and the short notice of the announcement for this one. I'm sure I sent this out before I left, but these things happen. But, there's always recordings. It'll be fine. So today, I'm very, very happy to have Toma Brisker with me, who's one of the core team. I think it's fair to say you're probably one of the fastest people to get core commit access, I think. A great member of the team, certainly. And he's going to be here today to talk us through the changes that have just been happening around Webpack. So welcome to the show, Toma.
Hi, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Let's dive straight into it then. Hang on a minute. I've just realized I've got the wrong slide up. See, Rusty? Did I say Rusty? I said Rusty, right? No, let's just go. Why does this? There we go. No, it's the right slide. It is. Not only can I not tell that it's the right slide, I think that it's the wrong slide. I'm having a great start to this show, aren't I? Okay, I'm just going to shut up and go and get some coffee or something, and I'm going to hand it right over to you.
Maybe did you start recording?
I'm afraid we have started recording, and you can't stop it. You can't stop it You can't stop it once you start. You only get one shot at these things. I can always download the video later and then edit it and re-upload it for YouTube. But the people watching it live, of which we already have 4 people, have all seen me make that horrible mistake. So, anyway, over to you.
Okay, so let's start. Basically, there's been a fairly large change in the way we handle the front side of Foreman recently. We've moved from a bunch of old jQuery code that was managed, well, not really managed. And we also have a problem of a lot of old dependencies that aren't maintained, libraries that were implemented like 2 or 3 years ago and never updated. So we basically, about half a year ago, had started thinking about moving forward and going to more modern solutions of handling all of our front side assets. That's mostly JavaScript, but also CSS, fonts, images, all of that. And we looked into several different ways of managing that. There's NPM, Bower, Browserify, and Webpack were the options we looked into. And we ended up going with Webpack. Webpack is well, it also includes NPM, but it allows us to very easily manage all of our front-end dependencies, add new stuff, and get it updated using NPM modules that are maintained, unlike some of the Ruby gems that package some JavaScript just are amazingly out of date. And so those were the motivations. Another cool thing that Webpack allows is hot reload. Hot reload means
So just before you jump on from the motivation, I should just remind people, I forgot to do, see, Rusty. I forgot to remind people that if you do want to get involved, obviously, I'm watching the IRC and Twitter channels while Toma's talking. So if you do have any questions for Toma, fire them out into #theforeman or #theforeman on Twitter, and I will pick those up and make sure they get asked. Or, of course, you can use the Q&A app on the stream itself. Okay, sorry, back to you.
Okay, so this is the main entry point for the Webpack code. Basically, on the Webpack assets JavaScript bundle, it basically just has a list of all of the modules that we want to include in our project. And the cool thing about hot reload is, for example, if we take a look at the hosts page and say I make some changes into the code, say alert hello deep dive, save it, and the page just reloads with the new code. I don't need to do anything. So that's a very nice feature when you're developing front end and you want to see your changes reflected immediately and don't want to keep pressing reload all the time. So that's one cool thing we get with Webpack. Wasn't the motivation, but it's cool anyways. Another good thing that Webpack allows us to do is, for example, use newer technologies like ES 2015, aka ES6, which is the new JavaScript code standard. It was introduced fairly recently, but requires some pre-processing in order for older browsers to handle it correctly. So, for example, one of the modules that we added is written in ES6 format. For example, the let keyword, or exporting functions and just importing them, which is very nice and a very good step forward, and would have been more difficult to do if we had stayed with the Rails asset pipeline. And so that's a good thing. There's other stuff that this allows us to do, which is upcoming. For example, linting for JavaScript code, which will run automatically whenever you save your code. There's testing with JavaScript code, which can also be run very easily. Basically, we're just starting to implement this, and there are a lot of very interesting possibilities here and very powerful directions which we can go to improve the code that we have right now. So there's been also a small change in the way you start Foreman. If you don't want to see all the details, you can just run Foreman start, which is now Foreman is another Ruby project that runs proc files, and they didn't check if the name was taken before they started using it, and now we can run Foreman in Foreman, which is cool, I think.
Oh man, I hate you so much. Do you know how many times I have to answer that question? Literally every time I give a Foreman 101 talk, someone thinks I'm talking about proc file management.
Yeah. So now Foreman runs Foreman, your dog. And what that does, I'll show the terminal, is basically, don't know if you can see that, runs both the Rails server and the Webpack hot development server, which handles all of the reloads.
If you've got a little box that says Hangouts is sharing your screen, you want to hit that hide button so that we can see what you're typing. There we go. Cool.
There we go. Yeah, so as you can see, it's basically just a simple proc file that runs Rails either by the environment variable you specify or just the default Rails server. And Webpack, it also runs Webpack, and you can pass various options to that as well. Just Foreman start, and you see the bundle being compiled. One of the plus sides to the compilation of the Webpack bundle is that it only takes the code that we actually need from the various modules we use. It doesn't include every single line of code, which leads to a reduced size for the JavaScript code. And that's pretty simple to run. If you want to disable it, you can edit config settings YAML, and there's a simple option to just disable the server. Once you do that, you need to run rake webpack compile, which will do basically the same thing that the dev server does, but save the result in the public folder, so you can just use that instead of those files provided by the dev server. You see it gets minified, and That's also needed for running the integration tests, because we don't want to run the dev server each time we load the integration tests. So I think we actually run it automatically, but I'm not certain. What else? Right here. Adding modules is also very simple. If you want to add a module
I'm
to...
just hearing from the guys on the RC channel that we're not getting your stream for some reason. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing what you're doing. I'm seeing your console and your text editors, but they say they're seeing...
Maybe you should stop showing
your
yours.
profile pic. No, it should all be working just fine. I don't understand why that would be the case. Let me just try that. I mean, I guess we'll need to give it a couple of seconds for the people on YouTube to catch up, but hopefully... Oh, okay. Apparently it was when I told you to hide the share button at the bottom, it went broken.
Okay.
Let's try it now and hope it comes back. Let's carry on and hopefully it'll sort itself out. I mean, people can hear what you're saying anyway.
So I'll move this up so you can see my typing. And actually, once you have that compiled...
Low-tech solution, yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, so I saw a little pop-up to update the POC file thing. Let me just set the Webpack dev server to disabled so I can show that afterwards. So the POC file thing is very simple. There's a POC file. It basically just runs Rails and Webpack simultaneously. You can set up environment variables, Rails startup, and Webpack options to customize that. And if you don't want to use the Webpack development server, for example, if you're just doing backend stuff, you can just compile the Webpack assets, and then you can just run Rails as usual, and everything will work once you disabled it in the settings. So adding, where was I? Adding modules. If you, for example, want to include a new module in the project, you can just pull it up a bit. So you can just npm install -- save. Give me a name of a module.
Just before we move on, because we had a little bit of an issue with that segment, I think there's just a couple of questions about the proc file stuff. So the proc file's in Git, right? It just works out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So literally check it out and bundle install Foreman start. We're good, right?
Yeah, and you need to also npm install before.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's all pretty straightforward. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It was just for the people that missed a little bit of the video there. Cool.
Oh yeah, sure. So if you want to add modules, you just npm install -- save. Let's say I don't know if Brisker actually has an npm model. Let's see.
So is the save a caching thing?
Save just adds it to the package JSON, which is the npm equivalent of bundle.
Right.
The gem file.
Sure.
This is taking a while. Never mind. But basically, you just install whatever package you need in your project, and just add it to the bundle.js, and it will, for example, if we were doing this for Brisker, just require Brisker, and that's it. It would just work, and it provides a good way to migrate from all of those outdated gems to newer code. Let's see what else I wrote here. Configuration. So Webpack, I think the main downside for it was that the configuration file is a bit complicated. It's at 90 lines right now. It's not too bad. Basically, that allows us, though, to have a very, very strong setup that allows us to easily add various modules to Webpack. It comes with both loaders and plugins that do similar things, but a bit differently. So you can, for example, add a CSS loader, you can add a URL loader, you can add linting, testing, everything can be added very simply with just a few lines of code here. Let's see, what else do I have here? Packaging has been a pain point because RPM packaging runs in a disconnected environment. We had to figure a way to get all of the node modules into that disconnected environments. And thanks a lot to Daniel, who did a lot of work in figuring out how to do it. Basically, any new dependency that we add to the main package JSON will need to be built as an RPM that includes all of that module's dependencies. It's mostly automated by npm to RPM, which Daniel wrote. If you're interested in adding stuff, it's all in the Foreman packaging repo. All of the steps you need to do, it's fairly simple, but it took a fairly long time to get to that solution. As for new code, the aim is to move everything to be, all of our JavaScript code to be managed by Webpack, so we can take advantage, for example, of ES6 and other various tools, linting, testing, everything. And on the way, rewrite all of the enormous amount of spaghetti code we currently have. New code should be placed under the Webpack assets JavaScript folder and should be written using ES6 syntax as modules whenever possible. That will allow us to clean up the global namespace and kind of start modularizing things. In the future, Webpack also has a feature that allows it to build different chunks of code based on the different dependency trees. So, for example, code that's only used on certain pages would not have to be loaded for every page. But to do that, will take time before we actually have enough code that is managed by Webpack, and we can look into that. But that's one of the goals in the future. Let's see anything else. I think that's basically the overview. So maybe if there's questions or things to elaborate on.
I'm sure there are. I've got a couple to get us started while I'm keeping an eye on IRC. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, two questions that have occurred to me. So you very briefly mentioned testing there. Presumably this makes things a lot easier to test individual parts of the asset system.
Yeah. So once we get code modularized into separate modules that are self-contained, it would be much easier to test them, because right now it's just completely intertwined with the views, and anyone that's written integration tests knows the pain of coping with Capybara.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not something that gets a lot of love, right? It's difficult to do. So how does this kind of separate it out away from the browser, allow you to do kind of unit level testing at JavaScript level?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We can integrate. Still haven't decided whether Jasmine or what's it called, the other framework, but it's fairly easy. Just add the testing loader and write your tests and just run them directly against the JavaScript code without having to fire up the whole server and stuff. should be much easier to both write direct unit tests for certain functionalities and much faster to run them.
Sure, sure. Ori mentions there's a change in debugging with Pry that possibly worth mentioning.
Oh yeah. For those of us that use Pry for debugging,
I'm one. Yep.
Yeah. So the thing is, the other Foreman gem, not ours, they decided that since they're running several processes at once, they don't know which process is the one that should get the input. So they pass the input for some reason, but they don't echo it back to you. So if you add a Pry debug, for example, let's say add a Pry debug here on the base page. Oh, and now I'm running without it, so it would work. But so loading. So basically, you don't get echo back. So there's several ways to work around that. One of them, it's just one of them is running it in just separate. This one, just firing it in separate. Running the Webpack server in separate in a separate console, and just have, instead of using Foreman to run them both at once, you can just run Webpack in one and Rails in the other, and then everything would work. And see.
Yeah, I was going to say that proc file didn't look very complicated. You could just run those steps, right?
Yeah,
and you're not using Foreman.
It's just convenience if you don't.
Sure.
So that's one option. So you get only some stuff echoed back. I have no idea why. See, yeah. So it's kind of a step behind, I guess, but I don't know.
It's a convenient thing, and if you're a Pry user, you're already kind of in that advanced category, right? So,
it's not very complicated. Another option is using the remote Pry gem that I know some people have started using. It basically just allows you to connect to a Pry session remotely. So
you find where it is, and
yeah. Okay. That's another option if you want to let it run together.
That's a good thing to know because I do use Pry, so I mean, it's a lovely tool. So knowing that would break in unpredictable ways is a useful thing. That's cool. So let me just see any more questions. Not just now. I'll ask one though. This one might be a bit of a can of worms, but since we have time, how do plugins make use of this?
So plugins currently can just keep working the same way they always did. Anything that's provided by the core bundle will be available to them. For example, jQuery or Lodash, anything that's provided by the core will continue to be provided. It's just loaded differently, so they don't care about it. Allowing plugins to extend it is a bit complicated. I mean, to use the Webpack infrastructure, we're still thinking about how to do that because the main issue is that Node doesn't allow the package JSON to include other files. It's just a JSON, and you can't inject stuff into it like we do for the gem file for Rails.
Right.
So, to be honest, I don't know yet how we'll work around that. But the upside is that plugins don't have to use it. Some plugins use Ember or Angular, and they have their own pipeline for managing that, whether it's Power or Grant
because
or whatever.
this is all build time stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like as long as the assets are there by the time it gets to the end user, that's an issue. It's just obviously it's providing a lot of benefits to core. So I wonder whether there was a way in which plugins that have got some assets could make use of it as well. Because presumably they're facing the same challenges. They've got things that are outdated. They've got things that are potentially hard to manage, and so on.
Yeah, I know that another initiative that's been started is including React based on this. So once we have React components, plugins would be able to reuse them as well. So hopefully the
Nice.
core would provide just nice, for example, a chart component that you could just implement in your plugin with little helper, and you don't have to worry about all the React
Yeah.
infrastructure and stuff like that.
That's good. Obviously, you don't really want to have to handle assets in your plugin if you don't have to. If core
Yeah.
can handle, 95% of it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so
But
that's the
still,
goal.
it's an interesting question still. I'm not seeing anything else just now, apart from Lukash asking the usual types of things. I think he's already annoyed with proc files. I don't see much else. I don't think there's much else to ask. I mean, I'm assuming we briefly showed the RPM packaging there. I guess deb packaging is pretty easy because it always has been.
Yeah,
as it's vended.
The packaging doesn't actually need anything to change. You just send it.
And yeah,
it works because we just run npm install on the builder, and
it's not disconnected in the same way, so it doesn't have as many things to worry about. Cool. Okay. Well, in the absence of any further questions, I don't think we've got anything more to cover. I was wondering whether it made sense to just quickly show the bit that went wrong with the video where you showed what the contents of the proc file and how that starts up very quickly again, and then I can stick an annotation in the video that just says, if you really want to see this, jump to the end.
Okay. So
we have plenty of time. I know it's a bit boring for you, but
no problem. I'll just first open the proc file to go over it. So the proc file just runs two processes. You can actually run them separately using the proc file if you want to. So, for example, you don't have to remember this whole Webpack dev server config thing. You can just run Foreman start Webpack, which I usually run in the background, and then obviously it's in use because I'm also using it here. Yeah, so I would just run that in the background, and then I would use Puma and use that to run on the Rails server. But if you want to use the proc file, just form and start. I'll move that up a bit. Form and start. It just runs Rails and Webpack simultaneously, and you don't have to worry about it.
Cool. I think his point was simply why not use a shell script? And I get the feeling the answer is so that we could use Foreman.
Yeah.
Oh, the joys.
Okay. Yeah, it could be run as a shell script as well.
Yeah. I mean, we used to have that. It's actually gone full circle because we used to have a scripts directory in the code base years ago, which I think is either empty or been deleted or what have you. Then it might still be there. And that used to have
there's still a few of them.
Yeah, but there used to be server, so script server start.
Yeah,
was how we started it like 4 years ago. It feels like there's a missed opportunity there to put it back. It would be great. Check out the code from like 4 years ago and take a copy of the script and then modify it. Anyway, we're getting off the point. So I think I don't see any more questions. We do have a question. Lukash would like to know whether that means we're getting rid of the Ruby racer in the asset pipeline. I guess the answer is no.
No, not at this point.
You still need something to run those assets, right? This is just how to get them in there.
Eventually, we could migrate all of our assets to Webpack and get rid of sprockets and the assets pipeline completely, but that's still a far way out.
Yeah. I mean, and that means you also have to make sure core does everything it can for plugins or provides a way for plugins to extend it and so on.
Yeah, still a long way out.
A lot of questions. A lot to do there, but it's a step in the right direction for sure. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I think on that basis, we're done.
Okay, so if anyone seeing this later has any questions or runs into issues with it, please ping me on IRC. I'd be happy to help.
So that's Brisker on IRC, Brisker Pro on Twitter. Mailing list obviously is a possibility as well. And if you have more general questions, obviously you can always contact me, King Gilvin. So other than that, this has been a great deep dive. Thanks, Toma, for coming on and explaining that for us. If you enjoyed it, the usual trinity of live streaming in this day and age. If you liked it, click on the like button. If you want to see more of it, click on the subscribe button. And you can follow us on Twitter for announcements of what we're up to. But for now, thanks for watching, and do take care.
Goodbye.